There's an ongoing, interesting phenomenon where certain people that voted for MAGA, for President Donald Trump, who campaigned on certain policies, become disappointed and even shocked when Donald Trump enacts those said policies. And in fact, they may start regretting their vote. Well, this is just another case that we're documenting where the head of Latinas for Trump is now condemning the unconstitutional deportations that Trump is doing right now. Of course, people have been warning about this. We've all been warning about this because Trump has been deporting people and skipping due process. So, with that said, let's just get into this headline. And it states Latinas for Trump co founder blasts inhumane immigrant arrests. Yeah, really interesting stuff. And I think the worst thing about this entire story, by the way, actually I'll get into it after reading the first paragraph. And so the first paragraph here, it states Florida State Senator Ileana Garcia, co-founder of Latinas for Trump, issued a sharp rebuke of President Trump on Sunday as his administration seeks to ramp up deportations and other actions against migrants without legal status. And so the worst thing, I think, in this entire story is that this head of Latinas for Trump is literally a state senator. I think it's one thing to be misinformed and vote for Trump the first time. I think there's a lot of leeway with changing people's minds that way. But if you're voting for Trump 3 or 4 times, or you're in public office like this person is, then you know exactly what Donald Trump is doing. You know what he packaged himself as a candidate. You know what he campaigned on. Anyways, continuing states, Garcia took particular issue with reported tactics in southern Florida, where immigration officials have allegedly been making arrests in immigration courts and taking other steps to target individuals otherwise in compliance with legal orders. And then she says, this is not what we voted for. And in fact, she wrote this on Twitter, so I'll actually expand the full thing right here. So it's on her pin right here. So this is exactly what she's saying on Twitter. So this is her live statement. And this is in a quote tweeting someone else who wrote a message regarding recent immigration actions. And this is Maria Salazar. And so she wrote, I am fully aware and heartbroken about the uncertainty now gripping Florida's 27th district because of the recent immigration actions of the administration. And keep in mind, the person who is condemning the Trump immigration actions from Latinas for Trump isn't the only one doing so, because this person named Maria Salazar is a congresswoman and she's doing it as well. And so Latinas for Trump head Ileana Garcia is now quote tweeting Maria Salazar on it. And so it makes more than one person, at least that we know of, that is condemning what Trump is doing, even though that is what Trump ran on. Here it states, I stand with Congresswoman Salazar as the state senator who represents her district and the daughter of Cuban refugees who are now just as American, if not more so than Stephen Miller. I am deeply disappointed by these actions, and I will not stand down. I want to put myself on record, she says. This is not what we voted for. I have always supported Trump through thick and thin. However, this is unacceptable and inhumane. I understand the importance of deporting criminal aliens, but what we are witnessing are arbitrary measures to hunt down people who are complying with their immigration hearings. In many cases, with credible fear of persecution claims, all driven by a Miller-like desire to satisfy a self-fabricated deportation goal. This undermines the sense of fairness and justice that the American people value. And the thing is, a lot of people never had problems with deportation if the person in question was a criminal, but you have to give them the court of law and you have to put them through the process of due process, right? You have to put them through due process to determine whether or not they are a criminal. You can't just arbitrarily deport someone and not give them due process and have a chance to hear them out. And so that's why when you first of all compare the President Barack Obama deportations with the President Donald Trump deportations, people are like, oh, look, Obama deported more people. How is no one blaming or pointing out that hypocrisy, quote unquote, when the hypocrisy in question was Obama lawfully and legally deporting people that were criminals. So that's the thing. And where Donald Trump is deporting people who may not even be criminals without not giving them due process. That's the problem. And that's at the centerfold of a lot of these protests that we're seeing relating to immigration. Now, she says that this is not what we voted for, which I find really interesting because Latinas for Trump says this isn't what they voted for or she voted for, but this is exactly what she voted for, because Trump spoke this entire time, and you even saw people at his rallies holding up signs for mass deportations, and then Trump was talking about, I don't know if I want to follow the Constitution or not. It wasn't just Kamala Harris who said Trump would do unconstitutional mass deportations, but Trump himself said he would as well. So to act shocked right now, after years of clear messaging, is disingenuous at best and negligent at worst. But she threw the very people she's supposed to represent under the bus, and it's really disappointing. But continuing, it states, in a statement to The Hill, White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson stressed that deported individuals are granted due process, which is not true, by the way. That was what the whole entire debacle with the El Salvadorian prison with Kelmar Abrego Garcia's deportation without due process was over, because a lot of people said you should give him the chance to prove that he's not a criminal. If he can't prove that, then, he should be deported if he is a criminal, right? So, continuing, it states, and cited pre-election polling showing broad support among Hispanic voters for deportations. Any illegal alien who is deported from the United States receives due process, and if they have pending asylum claims, they are adjudicated by USCIS prior to any removal, Jackson said. President Donald Trump was the first Republican presidential candidate in nearly 40 years to win Miami-Dade County, and polling ahead of the election showed massive support among Hispanic voters for deportations. She added, President Trump is fulfilling his promise to deport illegal aliens, and the American people are grateful. And I would disagree with that, because you can see that even right now there's so many protests happening across the country relating to these immigration deportations without due process. So, continuing, it states, Garcia's comments followed criticism from Representative Maria Alvarez Salazar, and she's a Republican congresswoman, like I said, from Florida, who issued a statement saying she's fully aware of and heartbroken because of the recent immigration actions of the administration. She said the administration's actions have left thousands exposed to deportation and jeopardized our duty to due process that every democracy must guarantee. And that's exactly the thing. If Trump is lawfully and constitutionally carrying out these deportations, why is it that so many of the usual MAGA politicians that Trump can usually get to bend to his will or fall in line with the MAGA agenda are now defecting from it and calling him out for it? So, just food for thought. Salazar said anyone with a pending asylum claim deserves to go through the legal process, noting that it is an indisputable fact that most of these claims come from people who fled Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, which Salazar noted are the three most brutal regimes in our hemisphere and sworn enemies of the United States. And here's the interesting thing. Right now, there's people that help Donald Trump get elected, like MAGA operative Charlie Kirk, who is now trying to shift the Overton window from illegal immigration to even just stopping legal immigration. Because now he's talking, we need to stop just any immigration, illegal or legal, from third world countries. He recently made that tweet this week, and that was the entire panic and the entire point of why so many people were really worried about this. Independents, Democrats, and moderate Republicans, because we were saying that this entire time that for a lot of people that are supporting the MAGA agenda in Congress, this was never fully and truly about illegal immigration. Right now, illegal immigration is just used as the Trojan horse to later stop legal immigration, because this is exactly what's happening. You can check Charlie Kirk's own Twitter. He is endorsing stopping legal immigration. You go through the process legally, well, guess what? You can't come to the United States anymore, even if you do it legally, which is what a lot of people were mainly concerned about. And I think a lot of people wanted to make sure that illegal immigration was stopped, but legal immigration was the main, it was the focus all along. But continuing, it states, I wholeheartedly agree that the administration must kick out every criminal here illegally, just as President Trump promised. Many still remain, and we should keep our focus on them, Salazar added, noting that she plans to meet with administration officials this coming week. Garcia issued her statement in response to Salazar's remark, saying, I stand with Congresswoman Salazar. As a state senator who represents her district and the daughter of Cuban refugees, who are now just as American, if not more so, than Stephen Miller, I am deeply disappointed by these actions, and I will not stand down. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm glad that the head of Latinas for Trump, Eliana Garcia, is honest about it, but she's being honest about this whole thing a little too late, as there's now protests over these unconstitutional mass deportations, and Trump is already in office doing these things. And at the end of the day, folks, this is just a reminder that political choices have real lasting consequences. It's not just a sports game, it's not just a reality TV show. Even though we elected someone to the White House who's trying to make this into one, it's not enough to regret a vote after the damage has already been done and is in the process of furthering that damage, especially when the warnings were loud and clear. When someone claims to speak for a community, like this person saying that they're Latinas for Trump, I think that their first responsibility is to protect that community, not align with policies that actively harm it. So let this honestly be a wake-up call to future voters. Don't wait until policies affect you directly to take a stand. Do your research, listen to warnings, and remember that political movements aren't just about slogans. They're about real people's lives. So with that said, we'll keep you updated on just everything that's going on with Trump and the immigration protests and how, his mass unconstitutional deportations. But yeah, if you made it this far, then comment a blue heart.